For the 7th time in their careers, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady will play for a championship. The New England Patriots are your AFC champions. The Brady NFL Middle Finger Tour has one final stop, Houston, Texas. The Pats win 36-17 over the Steelers. And let's face it, the Steelers were not ready for this game whatsoever. Brady, 32 for 42, 384 yards, 3 touchdowns. LeGarrette Blount had a good game with a touchdown. Chris Hogan, Jersey, by the way, Monmouth graduate, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Julian Edelman, 1 touchdown, 118 yards. The receiving was perfect. Tom Brady finds ways to make people stars. It's amazing. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, I feel bad for their fans because they were not ready for the AFC Championship game. Let's face it. Now, I got the whole AFC right in my playoff pool. Now, because I picked Dallas to win the whole thing, I lost $400. I got the whole AFC side right. And that started with my pick in the AFC Championship game because I was wondering who's the biggest threat to play in Foxborough and stop the Patriots? The Pittsburgh Steelers. They've got the experience. They've got an experienced head coach, a veteran quarterback who's been here before, an outstanding running back in Le'Veon Bell, and they have an outstanding wide receiver in Antonio Brown. That is one of the most dangerous combinations in the NFL ever. It was a no-brainer. New England-Pittsburgh was your AFC Championship game when the brackets came out. It was a no-brainer. We knew Pittsburgh would have to go into Kansas City and play a tough game, but this was a no-brainer. This was the easiest prediction I ever made on SMC Sports. What was even easier was to tell you that New England was going to win the game. And it was easier to tell you that Pittsburgh would not be ready, despite them being the best threat to stop the Patriots. Because there is nobody to stop the Patriots in the AFC. Notice how I say in the AFC. Because the moment Derek Carr went down on Christmas Eve in Oakland, New England won the AFC. The AFC playoffs became the New England Invitational, as I heard on WFAN, and it was completely on point. The moment Derek Carr went down on Christmas Eve, New England won the AFC Championship. That was 1 month before the game took place. You knew that the Oakland Raiders had the best legitimate shot to go into New England and beat the Patriots for the AFC title. The Pats have injuries all over the board. They have the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL, yes, but look at the teams that they played. We went over New England's schedule last week when I thought that Ben Roethlisberger was going to give them trouble because Big Ben was on paper the best quarterback that New England was going to face all year. I was wrong. His name was Russell Wilson weeks back because Big Ben forgot that this game was even taking place. He thought it was a scrimmage. We went over New England's schedule last week. New England, arguably, had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL all year long. They made it difficult on themselves at times. The Houston game in the divisional round was one of them. And again, we will say this for weeks on. You can make the case that if Brock Osweiler showed up in the AFC divisional round, that they might win that game. Because Tom Brady and the New England offense were awful. Their defense was not good. Brock Osweiler was just that bad. Think about it, people. We went over their schedule last week. Arguably, and in my opinion, the easiest schedule in the NFL all year long. And I said it last week, Big Ben will probably be the toughest quarterback that they face all year. I was wrong. They're facing Matt Ryan next week. Matt Ryan is the toughest quarterback they're going to face all year. But I will give New England some credit because I also said last week that if there was one team that could bounce back from a horrific performance like they had against Houston, it was the New England Patriots, and they did just that in a dominating 36-17 win. Brady showed up, the running game showed up, the receiving team showed up, the defense showed up, the O-line showed up, special teams showed up, everybody showed up. And the New England Patriots can rightfully be called AFC champions. The Pittsburgh Steelers, on the other hand, again, picking Pittsburgh, New England was the easiest prediction I made all year. What was the even easier prediction than that was picking New England to win the game. Ben Roethlisberger looked uncomfortable all night. The O-line was dreadful. The receivers were not good. Antonio Brown, I got his stats right here, 77 yards, 7 receptions, probably one of the worst games of his entire career. The running game was stopped. When you look at the numbers here, and of course Le'Veon Bell leaving in the first half didn't help. Now, my personal opinion, if Le'Veon Bell stayed in the game, I still don't think they win. But just overall, their numbers were not good. They were 1 for 3 in the red zone. You knew in the Kansas City game that Pittsburgh was going to have some trouble because that game was dreadful. Now, I was already tuned out because Dallas had lost to Green Bay like 5 minutes before. So I was already tuned out from that game. Looking at the bigger picture, I knew after that game was over that Pittsburgh had an awful game, New England had an awful game. It should match up to be a phenomenal AFC championship. I think New England will bounce back. I think Pittsburgh will bounce back. But in retrospect, I think New England will win the game. I was right. The only problem was New England showed up. Pittsburgh missed the flight. It's really hard to bet on the Patriots in an AFC Championship game in Foxborough. If this game was in Pittsburgh, we might have another story. But the fact of the matter here is Pittsburgh was not ready for this AFC Championship game. And you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation about it, but I've got the numbers right here. Pittsburgh could not score in the red zone. Big Ben looked uncomfortable and awful all night. The receivers didn't help him. The running game was stopped. Le'Veon Bell got hurt, which was a big factor, and the defense fell apart at the seams. They couldn't handle the pressure. And moral of the story, once again, when Derek Carr went down 1 month ago on Christmas Eve, that night, on December 24th, New England won the AFC.